Welcome back to the show. We got a great one lined up. Calls for Bitcoin to hit 150. We'll tell you who. Tether launches a new stablecoin for the U.S. market. SEC versus Ripple case countdown. Don't forget about it. We got other reminders too. And German stock exchange calling for an $18 XRP. I'm calling for somebody to roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and DigPerspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $3.94 trillion market cap for crypto. The market's off 4.6%. We see Bitcoin 118,600 plus, Ethereum 3,600 plus, and XRP number 3 spots 316. We're off 3.1 on the 24. We're off 3.3 on the 7-day. The range of price here ranging between 299 and 230 and 332. Excuse me. I did buy the dip. I didn't catch the 299, and I'm a little pissed about it, but nonetheless. But what are you going to do? You know, I still got the dip, and I didn't buy a lot. I just did it out of principle and out of my habit and my discipline. So I did that for myself as just like a walk through the process, you know, just to keep that discipline. But I couldn't not do it. That's where I was at with it. So I'm glad that I did. Look, before we get started, I want to tell you about Caleb and Brown, the crypto brokerage. It's a remarkable, remarkable service. Listen, I know you all have got accounts on all kinds of different exchanges and this kind of thing. But let me tell you what, if you just go and look at what they have, all you have to do is click the link underneath the video or go to xrpwealth589.com. DAI and myself have come together to open up an account, get you a free account open here so you can see the benefits of this platform too. All kinds of assets to choose from, not to mention the fact there's no hidden fees, no spreads. You get free institutional grade custody, no cost to you, one flat fee, and human customer service. And I'm telling you, speak to somebody about technical issues, speak to a prime broker about how to set your market orders correctly, and multiple layers of security as anyone would expect. Not to mention, you can even put special restrictions on your account as well. And in a moment where the market is about to explode like we've never seen it before, safety and security, that's the new sexy at my house. That's what I'm looking for. And I found it here. And you guys know all the platforms I'm on, and I trust them for the same reasons, even though they all have a little bit different features and services that they provide. It makes perfect sense for me at my house. It probably will for you too. So make sure you go to xrpwealth589.com and check it out. You're going to love it. No question. President Trump said crypto could be the greatest revolution in finance since the internet. Reminder.
This could be perhaps the greatest revolution in financial technology since the birth of the internet itself. A lot of people are saying that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Yes? If you say yes, I'm saying yes.
There you have it. The embrace is just remarkable. Now, just look, I mean, here we are just 7 months out of the election, and look at where we are now. The United States is on its fast track to become the leader in the digital asset space, which means the financial system as well. Meanwhile, we have just a few days to wait, ladies and gentlemen, 6 in fact. Bo Hines says the president's working group on digital assets will release its 180-day report on July 30th, positioning the United States as the leader in digital asset policy. I cannot wait for us to see that. And here's the one and only Galaxy CEO, Mike Novogratz, predicting $150,000 Bitcoin.
We're in price discovery in a lot of these things. And so does 130, 150, 150 seems to me a decent target just when I kind of draw funny lines on my charts. We have seen sellers that have come in, right? And so it's not a one directional trade. There's have been some sellers that have come in and have slowed things down, but it feels like we're destined to go higher as long as this narrative continues. If Trump changes his mind, and says, hey, we've done such good work, the economy doesn't need lower rates, that would change my thesis. But
well, that would change everybody's thesis. Oh my goodness. Look, he's not going to want to change the rates, Mike. He has to refinance the short-term debt that the previous administration has us under. And if he doesn't refinance it at a lower rate, we're paying way, way more back to the Fed. Just slow down there, Michael. Wow. Nonetheless, maybe a part of that 150 you see on the chart is because Jack Dorsey's Square has started allowing merchants to accept payments in Bitcoin. And shout out to Jack Dorsey for working to bring some utility to Bitcoin, which I wouldn't exactly call this utility, none to say, but at least it's something that will begin to allow them to use the asset other than just hold it, right? And here is an example of Square being used for Bitcoin payments. Feature rollout on devices used for 4 million businesses and sellers. So look, I think this is big news, and I love seeing this. Look, I want Bitcoin to find utility. I want Bitcoin to find its ability to grow and make its way other than just being this digital gold, and we all just hold it because there's 21 million, because that's a house of cards at some point. So I definitely like seeing this for Bitcoin, and it helps bring some utility to it. So good for them. $185 billion KeyBank is now letting 3.5 million clients buy and hold Bitcoin and crypto. Oh, you're going to like this guy. He sees the writing on the wall, and he's running towards the light.
Around stablecoin and crypto, how are you feeling about getting in and using it as potentially a platform and option for your clients?
I mean, it's early, but I think it has a lot of promise, and particularly around stablecoin. And obviously, the Genius Act was just last week. But when you think about stablecoin, there's really a few things. There's the institutional piece, which will be the equivalent of like prime brokerage. That will be dominated by a single handful of international banks. The huge volume, relatively narrow margins. That's not really an opportunity or a challenge for us. The next is as a storer of value. And clearly, to the extent, Sarah, that our clients want it and they want to hold it in their wallets, we will accommodate that. And so we'll be sure to do that. Then there's the sort of discussion around, is it going to cannibalize deposits at banks? I actually think that's a fair, I think it's a threat, but I don't think it's an immediate threat. And I think the industry will respond. I mean, you know, whether it's with tokenized deposits, which I think you'll see banks like Key do, and you may well see, I don't envision Key issuing a coin per se, but I could see us as part of a consortium of banks that issues a coin. And then I think the two best applications are really international payments. Right now, international payments are sort of this Byzantine approach of, you know, all these correspondent banks. It takes a long time. There's a lot of friction. I think stable coins could be a really good solution for our clients. It could be faster, cheaper, better.
Wow, what did that sound like to the end? Yeah, I'll leave it alone. We got a lot to go over yet. Tether has launched. Look, it's coming. You know, we need the clarity bill. We need the anti-CBDC surveillance act. We got to have all the bills. You got to have it passed into law. It has to be law. You're not going to see this market go where we know it should go until we get clear rules to the road. And that doesn't mean just nice legislation submitted to talk about. That means legislation's passed and become law, signed into law, right? So just in, Tether has launched Tether Ventures to invest in companies focused on decentralization, payments, AI, energy, and other sectors. So they got their own little hedge fund kind of going on. And then Tether will have to launch a new stablecoin specifically for the United States in order to be compliant. Now, he dances around that, but that's what the hardcore truth is.
You say that the current situation also allows for increasing demand for U.S. Treasuries?
Oh, absolutely. I like to define the US dollar as the best product the United States ever created. And think about all the people living in emerging markets where the inflation is 50% year over year. I mean, Europe and the US, we complain about 34%, but in many countries, the inflation is so high, the devaluation of their national currencies is so fast against the US dollar that the people want to have access to the dollar. That is what USDT, what is Tether is providing to them, to hundreds of millions of people, to tens of millions of families. And with that, yes, they want the dollar, and that creates an incredible new demand for US Treasuries. To US Treasuries that have been dumped by China and Japan recently, Tether was in 2024 among the 5th largest purchasers of US Treasuries.
Yeah, that's incredible, particularly now, as you say, that Japan and China have been unloading treasuries. The Genius Act also requires foreign issuers to comply with strict anti-money laundering laws, undergoing complex audit reserves with a 3-year deadline for companies to make those changes, Paolo. You say Tether will make sure U.S. DT complies with the Genius Act so that they can trade in the United States, right?
Listen.
You also say you're considering a U.S.-specific stablecoin.
So first of all, I want to say that Tether is the only stablecoin today that has the highest bar when it comes to complying with AML and working with law enforcement. We are the only stablecoin and crypto company that onboarded United States Secret Services. We work with the FBI, we work with the DOJ, we work with OFAC and the Treasury, and we work globally across the world with more than 250 law enforcement agencies in more than 50 countries. So AML and compliance is paramount for us, and we will continue to drive that. Of course, the Genius Act requires additional things from foreign issuers like Tether, and we're going to make sure to comply. We have, as you said, rightfully so, 3 years to comply, and for us is very important to remain listed on U.S. secondary markets. But at the same time, we are going to announce very soon our new initiative for a U.S. domestic stablecoin that will compete in the U.S. domestic market. So I'm very excited about that. I think will be a very highly efficient new offering for U.S. institutions.
Yeah, translation here. Let me cut through the foreigner there. Let me take the accent out of the mouth. Yeah, we have to launch a new stablecoin in the United States because we're not compliant. He says we have the most compliant token in the market right now. Well, that is not accurate. This one is. Real USD ranks #1 stablecoin with an A rating by Blue Chip, an independent stablecoin rating agency, which also gave a Delta D rating to Tether. So that's where that is, just to bringing that home. So just wanted to bring that straight back to where it was there. So, but look, I'm glad that Tether's going to have the opportunity to launch in the United States. We were wondering whether they would or not. So as it turns out, we were not wrong to understand Tether the way they are. They are not compliant, and they know it better than anyone. And they have to launch a brand new product to meet the U.S. standards, and that's what we've known all along. So that's the only way for them to play. And here this is, and this makes for an interesting continued conversation right here. You may want to read this one. All stable coins will have to be ISO compliant. ISO 20022 will modernize interbank payments on SWIFT network with additional data fields, faster transmission speeds, and new capabilities, in compliance, fraud detection, and prevention. It will adapt corresponding ISO 200 codes for payments and will apply to CBDCs and compliant stablecoins. It says it right here. It will adapt corresponding ISO codes for payments, which will apply to central bank digital currencies and compliant stable coins. Everything has to line up. Meanwhile, market data reveals XRP, even in the down market, is outperforming Bitcoin during this cycle. And it's mentioned multiple times in here. So that's all I can tell you. You know what's going on. This is nothing but good news for us, ladies and gentlemen, and it only gets better. This is an article right here based on what Dom from EZA had shared his knowledge on, basically saying too pricey when it comes to Bitcoin and Ethereum and where they are. And people coming into this market looking to take a position are essentially going to say that XRP beats Bitcoin and Ethereum right now because those are too pricey and too out of reach. But XRP isn't, and I believe he's absolutely spot on, and investors will flock to XRP. No question about it. And here we know just a few dates that are happening in a very, very short window of time, ladies and gentlemen, starting in August. But this is October. I want you to listen to this. What we hear from crypto czar, AI czar, David Sachs.
September. So if all goes well, then we could be looking at a second bill signing in, say, October.
There you have it. The Clarity Act is scheduled to pass in September and then be signed into law by October. And we know in the same window, Ripple applies for a national banking license. 120-day waiting period. That 120-day waiting period from July 2nd, 2025, when they filed, would put us right at the end of October 30th, 2025. And some are suggesting a decision could come as on the banking license potentially by November 29th. So let's call it October, November. The same window as the Clarity Act, which is the infrastructure bill. I have said, and I'm going to add to this, so that's the banking license. And then we're still waiting for the SEC versus Ripple case to resolve. Now, we got a stay or an extension to August 15th, and that was agreed on by all parties. Where are we now? Well, on August 15, 2025, the SEC expected to submit a status report to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals as a part of the ongoing SEC versus Ripple Labs case. Now, this follows a joint request by Ripple and the SEC to keep the appeals process on hold, all parties, pending a potential resolution. I have said this a mess of times, that this court case was just as much an audit and vetting process as it was a legal matter. I have said it that, this case could go all the way to the Supreme Court because it's a way of keeping a legal dog leash connected to Ripple and XRP in case something goes wrong. Why would they do that? Because you're introducing a bridge currency into the financial system while it's running. It's like a mechanic working and replacing the engine of a car while it's still running and it never stops running. It's the equivalent of open heart surgery, and you're working on the patient while the heart's still beating, right? It's, this is what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe that this case has acted as a way to shield and protect as much as it targeted Ripple and XRP. We know we've come out the other side. So what's it about now? It's about keeping this thing clean on the sidelines until all the legislation is where it should be. And then they get the banking license, the case goes away, and all of this hits right around the same time. The Clarity Act passes, signed, becomes law, and watch the hell out. But the August 15th update is primarily administrative, and the case's outcome may depend on Judge Annalise Torres' response to the indicative ruling motion, which could lead to a withdrawal of the appeals by both parties if approved. Legal experts consider a multi-year delay until 26 unlikely. So they see a resolution potentially occurring sooner. So it's important that we all understand that August 15th is just a preliminary administrative date. They could have something today that drops it. Anytime it could happen. So it doesn't have to be on the 15th, but more than likely, they will take it right up until the 11th hour. Maybe we even get another pushback, until October, until the bill passes. We don't know. I don't want to see any of this, by the way. I want to see it all done. But it does feel like a coordinated effort from my house. I can tell you that. That's where I'm sitting. Frankfurt Stock Exchange, the German stock exchange. Shout out to Oliver and all the good work he does there. I'm going to read to you, because he's speaking German, I'm going to read to you what he says. And this is what's amazing in the difference between the American stock exchange and the German one. The German stock exchange is telling you exactly where they believe XRP is going to go in price within the next few days or weeks. Take a listen. I'll read it. And that's a great story. I expect 100% here for Bitcoin in 25. And here I believe can make 200% from our current position. That means to 8, 9, 10 US dollars. Then the current price. And you can see how from the top market capitalization go down and the capitalization decreases, potential for lower lows movement, which we just experienced. Potential for upper movement is significant and greater too. So significantly greater. XRP now has the market capitalization over 200 billion. And I'll open this up. And it says, and so if you look at Ethereum stops now and doubles, it will pass Ethereum and it'll flip it in a matter of time before that happens. What does this mean for the future? When you look at this, you can see it very clearly in the monthly chart that this movement here is comparable to the many compare to this movement and the sideways movement. And we have that again over here currently. And you see when you compare this step that we have a possible another leg up. That's what we're looking at and expected towards 8 or 9 US dollars, which actually waiting for is expected. And Ripple is doing everything it can to ensure that it is supported by good news. Ripple has now applied for a US banking license, which in itself is what's trend setting is where Ripple wants to go and what function Ripple take on. We always talk about Ripple and has a full range provider. And now, as to create the legal framework, Ripple's stablecoin, RLUSD, has an annexation according to the new Genius Act. And I'll just say it, that XRP Ledger has been tested for use in the framework of the digital euro. And we know that is true. Things are happening everywhere, and I would hope that a lot of good news will come along now so that XRP can build up here and then shoot up accordingly, like we saw previous history, but that's the structure at the moment. We have here 100%, I believe, and I think we're at 200%. But Joanna, the news is really good, and we get into exaggeration. A coin like this could easily shoot up to 12, 15, or 18 US dollars. I don't want to rule that out, but purely realistically, the 4236 retracement has always at 8 or 9 US dollars, and that's the end of the road. But for many who entered at 30 or 40 cents, that's actually a really pretty good path. No question about it. And shout out to Oliver and all of his team doing the work that they do there. It just goes to show you that it's not the same everywhere around the world. The United States won't talk about it. And I think the big reason for that is because we're going to see the XRP Ledger adopted as a national and international payment system. And that's why you're not hearing a lot about it at the moment. But I think you will. It's just going to take the United States catalyst of signing this legislation into law. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.